Hey everyone, thanks for being here. Oh, that's loud. Awesome. I'm Ivan or Ivan. I'm with Aragon, and my function there is to try to make the organization more collaborative and, in general, foster more collaboration amongst DAO infrastructure builders and creators in the space, which means I'm in charge of memes and vibes mostly. Growing the pie is actually pretty big already, but there is a lot of room for it to grow. So we have about $10 billion in DAO treasuries. That number did an 18x over the last 18 months, which is pretty cool. But at the same time, there is some criticism around the ability of DAOs to deliver real world impact. And infrastructure enabling people to coordinate around deploying this capital in a meaningful way is one of the reasons why we believe less than what is possible is happening today. Oh, wrong screen. Back in 2018, DAOs was started with you get an on-chain treasury and on-chain voting, and that was it. And it was it because there wasn't really much other tooling and support around it. It was the Aragon client, and it was like things from the DAO, and people had obviously reluctance to use those tools. But what you started with was, I'm going to have a treasury, we're going to vote and decide what we do with the treasury. And both the tools and the definition of what a DAO is has moved on substantially since then. So today we have a lot more money, a lot more different types of DAOs, and hence the types of organizations and stakeholder groups that contribute to DAO creation is much more diverse. We also have some specialization, which is cool because someone being able to focus on one part of the puzzle enables them to excel at it and leave the other work to others. And ultimately, that specialization would hopefully crystallize in a Lego type composability that we saw unlock a lot of value in the DeFi space. I'm going to double click on the DAO products. So I like this visualization because it's dope, but also it's it it hints to the shift of focus towards also operators, because part of enabling DAOs to have real world impact is empowering them to actually operate once they've raised money. Because historically, most of the tools were okay. Let's collect financial capital predominantly, and we all know that a lot of organizations are now struggling to operationalize their objectives leveraging this capital. And the shift towards ops is an important part of making a meaningful change. And an idea Bao from DAO House came up with, oh, maybe someone else came up with, I heard it from him, was about the DAO tooling vending machine, which is becoming more or less a consensus strategy of how the space will move forward. So Moloch and DAO House are moving in that direction. Gnosis with Zodiac is moving in that direction. Aragon is also thinking in that direction, and we're taking steps towards this composable view of how different components built by different teams will interact to deliver a holistic operational and organizational experience. So what brought Aragon here, where a lot of other players are already as well, is Mcon. So back in September last year, Europe was closed, so I took 36 hours of flights to make it to the promised land of Mcon, which is a DAO conference organized by Metacartel. And as you know, those guys are the people that wrote the book on community and ecosystem building in Web3. And it was a transformational experience for me and for Aragon as well, as an organization where I'm trying to drive the change. Because the the spirit of Wagner is really strong with that community, and collaboration transpired a lot across a lot of dimensions through that conference. One of the more yes, that works. So one of the more cool initiatives that came out of this is DAO Star 1, which started with like 4 or 5 conversations at the conference. And under the guidance of MetaGov, there are now 60 organizations that are building infrastructure tools for DAOs, but also investors in the DAO space that are working together to solve the challenges that all of us are facing, which is pretty cool because if you're out there to revolutionize how humans coordinate and you are not coordinated and collaborative in that, it's a bit hypocritical. And it also means you're going to get there a lot slower. We pushed one proposal already, Ethereum improvement proposal that should unify how memberships and proposals in different DAO frameworks are expressed on and off chain across different DAO frameworks. So basically, you would be able to vote on the same, so submit, for example, the same proposal to a Moloch DAO and to an Aragon DAO and have the two communities vote on the exact same context. And one of the, and obviously this is just the first step. We're looking at a lot of other directions that towards problems that are common across DAO creators, DAO tool creators, DAO operators, etc. So how does identity and privacy play into participation? How would a multi-chain DAO future would look like? And one of the reasons why this is important is it will enable organizations to continue operating and succeeding in a future that has one or many vending machines. And it would also make, ideally, reach a stage of composability where you would be able to swap modules as your organization grows, or bear market comes across, like some project that you've used disappears, and then you don't have to like redesign your entire organization to be able to like swap something else in and substitute it for another tool. So this is on the product side and the technical side, but Aragon and a lot of other players in this space are priding themselves on being like product first and technical first. And what if they're blind spots? Like, what else could we be missing? Which was a question that I was asked, and I decided to Tom Sawyer it. So we started having some discussions with actually members of the Aragon community, which is in the spirit of this ecosystem approach to value creation. So we spoke with a bunch of people, and what they told us is, surprise, people that want to create DAOs, they want to speak with someone. They don't just want to click through an interface. So a lot of the DAO creators that were approaching us, a lot of the people that in our community that were thinking of structuring a DAO and like building one, they needed help beyond infrastructure, right? They needed practical guidance on topics that we as an organization are not necessarily qualified to give an answer. And like the talk just before that, like a lot of the questions around DAOs were like, how do I put a fair token launch? How do I protect myself legally? And like all those questions that, an infrastructure provider is not necessarily the best reference point to give you an answer to. And so we did some research with DAO creators and aspiring DAO creators, and it's a very content-heavy slide that you don't necessarily need to read everything. But the idea is it's like a very long journey. So somebody, especially if they're coming from Web 2 and they have an idea, they've heard about DAOs and they're excited about it, it takes them 6 to 12 months of inspiration and then depression and then like this is not going to work and all of that to get to a point where they can launch an organization to pursue their goals. And there is a lot of great content being done. Shout out to Gnosis and Rabbit Hole who are doing really good work on like structuring that content. But experts and service providers that specialize in creating DAOs can shorten that journey even further. And one of the reasons for that is we're in a very heterogeneous space still. And I know I talked about standardization, but like a lot of things cannot be standardized yet in a product because every DAO is still different. The definition of what a DAO is remains fluid. And even if you look at the most mature case, which is investment, it was the DAO, and then like most of the DAOs that have emerged since look at investment as the main use case. Collect financial capital, deploy it, decide jointly on how to do that. Even looking at that specific use case, service providers are still a massive part of this value creation. And you can, for example, Tribute Labs that are specialized in this, like this, still service provision is a big part of the value proposition. So what are we going to do about this? We're going to embrace the Wagner mentality. So we have a bunch of people that want to build DAOs, that they come to us and they want help that we cannot provide. And then at the same time, they're like teams that are really good at helping communities become DAOs. I mean, this is an illustrative example. Like, we haven't spoken with those guys yet. Like, I don't know if they will agree to work with us. Hopefully, some will. The few we've discussed this with are excited about it. So the idea is, we'll just help them discover each other. And there is, I have to say this because it's the reason and the way this whole thing would work. There are no strings attached. So somebody comes to us and they're like, oh, I need help building a DAO, and like we send them to FireEye, and then FireEye help them build a Moloch DAO, and it's still a win because the pie is big, but it can grow a lot more. And our purpose for existence is not bring everyone to our platform. Our purpose for existence is help humanity solve coordination failures. And even an indirect contribution is still a valuable one. And we can obviously, I mean, it's not completely altruistic. We're going to learn what those people need, which will help us evolve our product. But in terms of direct monetary incentives, we don't expect anything. So the reason why I'm saying this, it's a daring endeavor, and I managed to convince the team to do this, but I still think there is a lot of stakeholders out in the ecosystem who can help deploy this strategy and like make this endeavor a success. So like this part is we have that somehow covered. Like there are a lot of projects that come to us asking for help, and what we need is to work with reputable service providers that provide that help. I mentioned FireEye, Raid Guild. There are a lot of organizations. Some of them are not top of my mind, and that's why I wanted to do this in public. And like the CTA is like, if you are such an organization and you help DAOs be created, come talk to us. We'll try to like plug you in with someone that needs help. Or if you've done something like that in another context and you think you can help us with just ideas of how to do this better, also we would love all the help we can get. And typically this sort of presentation ends with the CTA, but I have something else as well, because there are challenges to this approach that are not solved. So the next one is about questions, not answers. And those are some ideas that we're thinking about, and we don't know what the answer is. So the first one is something that it's a can that I keep kicking down the road, and the team is going to come after me at some point. But it's, can this culture and philosophy of abundance outlast the moment when projects would have to start monetizing code? Because service is something that's pretty well, so the monetization models around services in this space are pretty well thought through. But a lot of the infrastructure is not monetizing today, which allows us to do the Wagner thing, right? Like, yes, let's all work together towards this bright future. But as soon as some projects have to have this pressure to monetize their code, would it push them to start trying to fence and like create hooks and lock users in? I don't know. I hope not. Maybe like one solution I'm thinking of is we're just gonna diversify each other's treasury, and it's gonna just become one big meta DAO. Maybe that will happen. Maybe it won't. I think it will be cool if it does. Another interesting concept is the need of or the emergence of new intermediaries, and like it's funny because back in 2017, 2018, there was this promise that blockchain is going to disintermediate everything. But we're now in a situation where there is so much information that actually someone who's um, objectively neutral and can structure that information and provide it in a consistent and relevant way can add a lot of value to the ecosystem. We're seeing that especially emerge into the NFT space because traditionally in art there were curators who were like a compensated function, and they clearly provide some value to the ecosystem. And there are projects in the NFT space that are starting to figure out how to incentivize curators. This is me talking now, not Aragon as a whole, but like I believe that these sort of roles would emerge across other verticals as well. We're seeing some of it in DeFi where we have like the aggregators and the optimizers, and maybe that would evolve into token curated registries, which is an idea from 2018 that never took hold, but maybe now it will. I don't know. It's a good idea by Ryan Selkis from Messari. So if any of you want to talk about those three things, reach out to me. This is my personal CTA. Thanks, everyone. That's it. I can take some questions now. Go for it. So we're focused mostly on on-chain execution, and in the direction of this vending machine idea, we're going to be focused on delivering consistent and smooth journey for DAO creators and operators. Individual tools, there are teams that are focused on those tools, and if we see something that makes sense and nobody's building, we'll probably build it. But at this point, for example, when it comes to contribution attribution, I don't know what better word for that is, but like there is Coordinate, there is SourceCredit, there are teams that are working on this stuff, and like it doesn't make sense for us to like do the same thing. It makes sense for us to make it accessible to projects that have built using some of the other tools that we've created. So short answer is depends. I have no idea how much time I have left, or do we have time for more questions, or no? One more question? I guess I killed it because nobody has questions, or nobody understood what I was talking about, which is like the other case when nobody has questions. But well then, if there's nothing, thanks everyone for being here, and come talk to me after.